In this lesson, we're going to talk a lot about linear equations, linear situations, graphs, tables. Linear means that it's going to make a straight line, and it's changing by the same amount. So if we're taking a look at a graph, table, equation, or situation, first of all, starting from a situation, we're going to take a look at a tile pattern. We want to be able to make a graph, a table, and an equation from that tile pattern, from any situation. We also want to be able to go from those backwards and be able to understand a situation based off of a graph or a table or equation. We also want to be able to look at a table and be able to make a graph or an equation from a table. And lastly, as well, we want to take a look at either a graph or equation and be able to go back and forth. So I'm going to try covering most of these right now. If we take a look at a situation here where we have a tile pattern, figure 1, 2, and 3, that looks like that. We can kind of see how it's growing. First of all, I want to look at, in figure 2, can I identify where figure 1 is located? So if I look at figure 2, right there in red would be figure 1. That helps me figure out what has been added. So what has been added were those two tiles that I just shaded purple. Looking now at figure 3, can I identify where figure 2 was inside of that, and then figure what was been added? So in red would have been figure 2, and again, added would have been those in purple. So we can see that I'm adding 1 to the top right, and I'm adding 1 to the bottom right, for a total of 2. If I work backwards, if I'm always adding 1 to the top right and 1 to the bottom right, if I look at figure 1, that means there had to have been 1 added in those 2 spots, following that same pattern. So figure 0, if I want to look at figure 0, would be right there in red, and I can draw figure 0. So if I look at what's happening between each shape, and I think my equation y equals mx plus b, there are 2 tiles being added from each figure to the next. That is my m value, or the slope. So it's been changing by 2 tiles. 2 tiles have been added. If I look at figure 0, there are 3 tiles. That is the b value, or my 0 term. So my equation then for this situation is 2x plus 3. 2 again meaning how much it's changing by, 3 meaning my 0 term. If I want to make a table from this situation, so figure 0, looking back at the last problem, had 3 tiles. So I now have 3. It was growing by 2 each, so I have 5 for figure 1, 7 for figure 2, and figure 3 had 9 tiles. So looking now at a table and making sense of it, I'm changing by 2 in my y value every time I'm changing by 1 in my x. That gives me a change in y over change of x of 2 over 1. So now if I think of a table and try to make an equation from that, I have my 0 term is 3. I have my change of y over change of x is 2. So I can write my equation, y equals mx plus b. There is my slope, the change in y over change of x. And my 0 term is b. So the exact same problem, looking at it a little differently. We looked at it from a tile pattern, and we looked at it from a table, and we're making hopefully connections between those. If I want to now graph this, there's the table that we had from the previous one. The 3, that was my 0 term. When we were looking at the tile, that was my 0 term. X equals 0 is my y-axis. So I can put a dot right there at 3. That is my 0 term. I am adding 2 for every x value that's going up by 1. So I can make my slope triangle now of up 2 in the y direction to the right 1 in the x direction, and place my next dot, and I can continue that pattern. I can also go the other direction and put dots the other way because they have these same slope triangles. And now I draw my line through them, and there's the equation, y equals 2x plus 3. If I wanted to go through and go straight from a different equation, y equals 3x plus 1, if I wanted to now graph this. So now I'm going to try going straight from an equation to a graph without making a table. So again, that value right there, that is the b, that is my figure 0 when I'm looking at a situation. It is my term 0 if I'm looking at a table. It is my y-intercept on a graph. Those are all the exact same thing. We just name it slightly differently for each individual part that we're looking at. The 3 was my growth when we looked at the tile pattern. It was my change in y over change of x on a table. It is the slope when we are looking at a graph. So with a slope of 3, that is 3 over 1. So I go up 3 to the right 1, and I can continue that pattern. Up 3 to the right 1, up 3 to the right 1. I can also continue it in the other direction and draw on my line.